So let's talk about a huge shift that's happening in healthcare right now, the drive toward what's called high reliability. We're going to pull from some of the big thinkers in the Culture Coalition, people like Mark Chassin and Don Berwick, to really get a handle on what it takes to build a system where zero preventable harm isn't just a dream, but the actual standard of care. And this is so important when we think about our most complex patients, the ones in the hospital where the stakes are just incredibly high.
This quote from Mark Chassin really just says it all. The goal is zero harm. Not just a little less harm, but zero. That is such a radical idea. It's a North Star for everything we do. It forces us to completely rethink what's even possible in patient safety. It's moving from a place of, well, bad things happen sometimes, to demanding that they don't. And that idea, that's the foundation for everything we're about to talk about. So how in the world do we get there? Well, we've broken it down into 3 main pillars. First up, we'll talk about the fundamental mindset you just have to have. Then, we'll get into the practical toolkit, the how-to. And finally, we'll look at the new incentives that are making all this work a real business priority. So, let's just dive right in. Okay, let's really focus on the goal itself. The very first, and you could argue the most important step, is a complete and total change in how we think. It's about shifting away from a culture that kind of accepts that errors are just part of the deal to one that actively hunts them down and designs systems to make sure they can never, ever reach the patient. Now, you might be thinking, zero harm in a hospital? That sounds impossible. But other super high-risk industries, like commercial aviation or nuclear power, have basically shown us it can be done. These places are called high-reliability organizations, or HROs. They manage just incredible amounts of risk and have almost perfect safety records. The key isn't to copy-paste what they do, but to really absorb their core principles, especially how they think about failure. And this slide just lays out the difference perfectly. On the left, you've got this culture where, because big mistakes are pretty rare, it's easy to get complacent. But over on the right, in these HROs, they are, and I love this phrase, preoccupied with failure. They're never satisfied. They're always on the lookout for the tiniest little signal, the smallest thing that's out of place, because they know that's exactly where the next big problem could be hiding. Which brings us right to our first pillar, the mindset. Because look, you can have all the fancy technology in the world, but if your culture isn't right, none of it matters. High reliability always starts with the people, especially when you're managing really complex patients where teamwork and communication are everything. And the bedrock of that culture is captured right here by Don Berwick. It's about getting away from blame. When something goes wrong, the first question can't be whose fault is it? It has to be, why did our system let this happen? As Berwick says, almost everyone in healthcare wants to do a great job. It's the systems we build that can set them up for failure. So what does a just and learning culture actually look like on the ground? Well, it starts with being totally transparent and empowering people. That means sharing data, even the bad stuff, and making sure patients and frontline staff feel safe to speak up, because they often see risks no one else can. And maybe most importantly, it means seeing every single error not as something to punish, but as a priceless piece of information about how we can make the system better. And this right here, this is one of the biggest roadblocks to safety. Mark Chassin's work makes it crystal clear. A culture where disrespect is allowed is, by definition, an unsafe culture. It makes people shut down. It creates an environment where a nurse or a doctor sees something wrong but is just too afraid to say anything. And that silence, that's what lets dangerous situations continue until a patient gets hurt. Okay, so having a great culture is the foundation. It's the why. But you need tools to build on top of it. That's our second pillar. Giving teams a systematic way to solve those really tough problems and build rock-solid processes that keep patients safe. Now, this whole toolkit is often called Robust Process Improvement, or RPI. Don't let the jargon throw you. Just think of it as a super disciplined, systematic way to fix things. It's not just one idea, it's a mix of proven methods that have worked in other industries, all aimed at driving real, lasting improvements in safety. RPI really stands on 3 legs. First is lean thinking, which is all about getting rid of waste, things like useless paperwork or long waits for patients. Second, you've got Six Sigma, which is a data-heavy way to hunt down and eliminate errors, making sure a process, like giving medications, happens the same safe way every single time. And then there's change management, which is the crucial people part, making sure everyone understands and buys into the new, safer way of doing things. The real magic of RPI is that it moves teams from just patching holes to actually fixing the deep-down root cause of a problem. So instead of just telling everyone to be more careful, these tools force you to dig in and figure out why things are failing in the first place. It's all about redesigning the work to make it easy to do the right thing and really hard to do the wrong thing. So we've got the mindset and we've got the tools. But what's going to make this a top priority for everyone? Well, that brings us to our third pillar, the money. For really the first time, the economics of healthcare are starting to line up to actually reward safety and quality. This quote from Abe Sutton at CMS just nails the old way of doing things. The old fee-for-service model basically turned healthcare into a series of separate, billable events. There was almost no financial reason to coordinate care or prevent problems. In fact, sometimes the system actually paid more when things went wrong. This slide shows the heart of the new economic reality. We're moving from a system that pays for the volume of stuff you do, more tests, more procedures, to one that pays for the value of what you do. And that value is defined by patient outcomes. In this new world, preventing a complication or making sure a patient has a smooth discharge isn't just good medicine, it's good business. And that creates a massive financial reason to invest in the culture and tools we've been talking about. And hey, this isn't some far-off futuristic idea. New models from CMS like the Access and LEAD programs are putting this into action right now. They're built to give doctors and their teams the financial breathing room and flexibility to invest in things that prevent harm and drive reliability, the very things that used to lose money in the old system. All right, so we've covered the mindset, the toolkit, and the incentives. Let's pull it all together and get to the most important question. Why does this all matter? What's the actual payoff for the doctors, nurses, and leaders out there? And of course, for the patients they take care of? Well, the payoff is a genuine win-win. For leaders and clinicians, high reliability means you can actually thrive financially in this new value-based world. It means less wasted time and money, and honestly, better staff morale, because people want to work in a place that delivers amazing, safe care. And for patients, the benefit is even clearer. It's safer care with fewer mistakes, a smoother journey through the system, and at the end of the day, more trust in the people looking after them. In the end, when you strip everything else away, it all comes back to this one simple, powerful idea from Don Berwick. Every new system, every piece of technology, every payment model, they're all just tools. The real goal, the only one that truly matters, is the safety and the well-being of the patient. We're at such a unique point in healthcare right now. For the first time ever, the moral duty to do no harm is finally lining up with the scientific methods to achieve it and the financial incentives to actually support it. The road ahead is clearer than it's ever been. So the real question isn't if we can achieve higher reliability, but what are we each going to do to make zero harm our reality?